I'm a commissioner with the California Transportation Commission. I was the immediate past, I am the immediate past chair. I'm pleased to be here in West Sacramento with all of you. On a personal note, for 3 years, I lived in Natomas and went to UC Davis Law School. So the Causeway was my home for many, many hours. So this is obviously very familiar to me here. Thank you all for coming. It's so important to be able to hear from the community before we have our meetings and vote on anything. I would like to welcome the elected officials that we have here in the room. Thank you so much for attending. I know we have folks from Davis and Winton and West Sacramento, Winters. Oh yeah, Winters. Sorry, I did live right by there. I promise. Have wonderful little restaurants in Winters, and I think West Sacramento. So thank you for coming. In addition to myself, we have Commissioners Bradshaw, Falcone, and Tiffany, and online somewhere up in the atmosphere. I think we have 3 commissioners. We have Commissioner Norton. Who else do we have? Oh, we have Chair Gardino and Vice Chair Grisby. So thank everyone for coming. Some of you attending today may not be familiar with what the CTC does. Sometimes I like to say we are those folks who look at the entire state and see what the transportation needs are for the state. We are governed by 11 commissioners, 9 of which are appointed by the governor, 2 by the legislature, and we allocate state and local funds. So sometimes people come up to me and say, okay, where's that great big giant checkbook? Because that's what I'm here for. We don't have that. But we do look at where those dollars should go equitably across the state. We work with all of our local agencies. We work with Caltrans. We work with the governor's office and CalSTA. Our goal is to ensure that we here in California have the best transportation system in the entire country. And I have to tell you, I've been to Washington, D.C. many times with all of the states sitting at the table, and they're really jealous of us. So we are already there. That brings us to why we're here today, which is informational hearing to receive public comment on the application that we have received as a commission to authorize tolling on Interstate 80. Your input in this application is important to the commission. We consider all tolling applications. We want to emphasize that today's hearing is informational only. We're not taking any action today. We're not voting on this today. We're just hearing from you. And for us, that's extremely important. We will provide further instructions on how to comment once we get to the public comment section, which is after the presentations from folks here in the room. So now we'll move on to agenda item number 2, the overview of the commission's toll facility approval process from our esteemed executive director, Taylor.
Thank you, Commissioner Eager, and thank you all for attending today. Before we hear about the proposed project and receive public comment, we wanted to first make everyone aware of the process for approving toll facilities. In 2015, the legislature passed a law, Assembly Bill 194, which assigned the commission the responsibility to approve toll facilities in California. This law contains several criteria for the commission to consider for a toll facility application. For example, the project must demonstrate that it will improve corridor performance, such as by increasing the number of people able to pass through the corridor or by reducing travel delays. In addition, the commission approved program guidelines in March 2016 that request applicants to provide supplemental information, such as the project's impact on nearby transportation routes. A complete list of the application requirements in the law and the commission's guidelines is available on the commission's website or by contacting the commission directly. The law also requires that the commission, prior to approving an application, conduct at least one public hearing at or near the proposed toll facility for the purpose of receiving public comment. Today's hearing is being held pursuant to this provision of the law. On March 15th, the commission received an application from the Capital Area Regional Tolling Authority, which is a joint powers authority made up of Caltrans, Yolo Transportation District, and the Sacramento Area Council of Governments to authorize tolling on a portion of Interstate 80 from Richards Boulevard to the Highway 50 interchange in the eastbound direction and from the Highway 50 interchange to Mace Boulevard in the westbound direction. A copy of the application is available on the commission's website. The hearing we are holding today on this application is informational, only to listen and receive public comment. I want to emphasize this. There will be no actions taken today. We are here to listen and learn about the application and hear from the public. I also want to clarify that today's hearing is only about the authority for the applicant agency to toll along this corridor. This hearing is not about other matters related to the project, such as the environmental review or whether to approve funding for it. Commission staff currently are reviewing the application and will be taking into consideration all of the public comments that we received from today's hearing, as well as any additional written comments we receive. Commission staff will then make a recommendation to the commission whether to approve the application at the next commission meeting, which will be held on May 16th and 17th in Orange County. In closing, I would like to reiterate that today's hearing is informational only for the purpose of receiving public comment. And again, thank everyone for joining us today. With that, I'll turn it back over to Commissioner Eager.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item number 3, which is the presentation about the proposed project given by the applicant. Today, the applicant is the Capital Area Regional Tolling Authority, which is a joint powers authority created to manage toll lanes in the greater Sacramento area. To give the presentation, we have the Executive Director of the Yolo Transportation District, Autumn Bernstein. We'll also have Acting Caltrans Director, Sergio Aceves, as well as the Executive Director of the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, James Corliss. And you're up.
Great. Well, again, my name is Autumn Bernstein. I'm the Executive Director of the Yolo Transportation District, and I just want to take this opportunity to welcome you to Yolo County, or welcome back to Yolo County. Would you like me to do this? Great. All right. So we do have a slide deck for you. So you're going to hear from me first. I'm going to talk about the purpose and need, some of the background about why we're doing this project, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Sergio from Caltrans to talk about the project itself, and then James Corliss of SACOG is going to talk a bit about CARTA and the kind of the regional perspective on the project and this new tolling authority that we have established. So if you go to the next slide, or am I
Switch around so we can see.
Oh, okay. Feel free to take your time to get your chairs. Sometimes we settle day, it's nice to stand. Okay, great. All right, so project location. If you drove here today, there's a good chance you may have crossed we are actually in the project area here. So it's Interstate 80 in Yolo County. The full project goes from just west of Davis at the Solano County line all the way across the river into Sacramento at West El Camino Ave on 80, and then also a short segment of Highway 50 as well after those split off here in West Sacramento. But the project will be constructed in phases, with phase 1 shown in orange here on the map. The toll facility application for this public hearing is covering is just for phase 1 of the project. It's important to note the big green area in the middle, that is of course the Yolo bypass, which is a flood area. This open space serves as Northern California's main flood protection infrastructure, and it's also wildlife habitat for more than 280 species, and protection of this flood infrastructure is a really important component of this project. That very same flood infrastructure also serves as a barrier to movement between the Sacramento region and points to the west, particularly the Bay Area. Because while this corridor is important to Yolo County, it's also this critical connection here in Northern California. There's no other way to get between Davis and West Sacramento. It's a land bridge, essentially, over the bypass, and all local, regional, and interregional travel must go across this corridor. When Yolo 80 is restricted, the alternate route forces people and goods to go miles out of the way. So what you see here is what the travel time and distance differences are for a trip from Sacramento to San Francisco using alternate routes. And as you can see, it's quite significant. Many of these alternate routes use rural 2-lane roads that are just really not designed for the heavy traffic volumes that they experience. So unfortunately, you can't really see the top of this too well, but what that says at the top is choke point at the Yolo Causeway. This is a cross section of how many lanes there are geographically starting from west to east. Everything that is green is areas that have, it's the percentage of days of with hourly congestion, so that green is less than 9. And what you can see is the area that our project covers, we have some of the highest amounts of congestion across the causeway. And that is in part due to the fact that this is just one of 2 stretches where 80 has 3 lanes between the Bay Bridge and Roseville. And so because, again, you have the Yolo bypass there, 80 is only 3 lanes and there's no alternate routes. The other stretch where 80 is 3 lanes is just west of Davis, between Davis and Vacaville, as you can see here. But in that case, there are alternate routes, mostly country roads that people take to bypass congestion, which is why we see this critical bottleneck on Yolo 80. Going to the next slide. So with no alternate routes and this bottleneck, Yolo 80 experiences some of the most severe congestion in the Sacramento region. The phase 1's 10-mile segment takes an average of 22 minutes to travel during the peak, but that time will balloon in the future if investments are not made on the corridor. The Northern California mega region, which includes the Bay Area and Sacramento and Northern San Joaquin Valley, is growing. It's expected to grow by 10%, significantly increasing demand for travel on the corridor, leading to an estimate of 74 minutes of peak travel time in 2049 if nothing is done. Even with today's travel demand, the gridlock congestion at Yolo 80 resulted in 25 fatalities in the project area in the last 5 years, 61% of which are congestion-related rear-end collisions. During these collision events, of course, there's loss of life, and there's also traffic backups that go for miles. And without any ITS infrastructure, there's no way to communicate conditions to drivers. The congestion on the corridor is particularly bad westbound at the start of the causeway and eastbound at Mace Boulevard. Eastbound traffic at the causeway bottleneck starts backing up as early as 6:30 a.m. and the Mace Boulevard bottleneck is congested for more than 5 hours every day. Critically, transit and car pools on this corridor are also stuck in the same traffic. My agency is not just the transportation planning agency for Yolo County. We are also the transit provider. We operate the Yolo bus service as well as paratransit service for Yolo County. 84 buses a day travel across the causeway, including our Route 42 intercity loop, which is the backbone of Yolo County's local transit network, as well as our popular Causeway Connection service that connects the UC Davis campus in Davis with the UC Davis campus in Sacramento. The #1 complaint that we hear about these services is how slow and unreliable they are due to the severe congestion on the causeway. But again, there is simply no other way to get our buses between Davis and Sacramento because, again, land bridge. We want people to be excited about the speed and reliability of transit service, but it's very hard to get people motivated to take transit when it sits in this kind of traffic. As the region grows, if nothing's done, travel times for our Route 42 and the Causeway Connection, or 138 as it's listed here, will grow exponentially. Right now, it takes about 35 minutes. We estimate it will take 81 minutes if nothing is done to fix the causeway. And as you can see, transit makes just a tiny fraction of the mode share on this corridor. We need that number to grow if we're going to achieve our state and regional and local climate change and VMT reduction goals. But we don't feel that that is really possible unless we can get our buses out of the traffic. One of the cool things about this corridor is that we have a barrier separated bike and pedestrian path that runs on the north side of the highway. While this is a lot better than a lot of freeways can boast, the routes that connect this bike path to the local roads on either side are very problematic. And there are a number of fatalities that have happened, beloved members of our communities that have been killed trying to get on and off this facility. These challenges create further disincentives for people to take these alternatives. Right now, about 60 trips per bicycle cross this every day. Especially with the rise of e-bike technology, we think the potential is much higher for more bicycle travel on this corridor. And then finally, as we discuss this toll facility, I know that the topic of equity is going to come up. I want to root that conversation in the existing inequities that we see on the corridor. Nearly 90% of the trips through the causeway start and end outside of Yolo County. But our communities are burdened with the pollution of these pass-through trips, not to mention the cut-through traffic in the neighborhoods and rural roads, which creates very unsafe conditions for local residents. but we receive few of the economic benefits of these trips. The median income of a driver on the causeway is more than triple the median income in West Sacramento. Unpriced freeway travel on this corridor is an environmental justice issue. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sergio to talk about project scope and schedule.
Thank you, Autumn, for all this. Put my name up there. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Executive Director Taylor. Again, Sergio Aceves, District 3 Acting Director. Pleasure to be here with all of you. This quarter, we have a multimodal vision. While today's public hearing is focused on our application to the CTC to operate toll lanes on this corridor, we want to be clear that these toll lanes work as part of a multimodal vision. Phase 1 of the YOLO 80 project not only adds toll lanes, it also increases freight throughput and reliability, improves bike and pedestrian connections, adds ITS infrastructure, and upgrades transit and rail services on the corridor. The YOLO 80 project will add one high occupancy toll lane in each direction, keeping the existing three general purpose lanes free. Nothing's going to change on those three general purpose lanes. While the project will dramatically improve travel time reliability in the toll lanes for buses, carpoolers, and paying drivers, the project also improves travel time reliability by 46%. For freight and other vehicles utilizing the general purpose lanes. The toll lanes will be broken up into 5 toll zones, as you can see here. 2 in the westbound direction and 3 in the eastbound direction. Each of these zones will be priced higher in the peak hours to help manage demand. The project was analyzed assuming the toll lanes will collect tolls 7 days a week. When tolls are not being collected, the toll lane will be open for all travelers, further improving travel times and reliability outside the toll operations windows. While these proposed operations reflect the needs of the corridor, actual discounts, operating hours, and toll prices will be set by the CARTA board to ensure our community has the ability to weigh in on these important decisions. With I-80 being identified as a primary freight network route and one of the top 6 freight corridors identified as part of Senate Bill 671 Clean Freight Corridor Efficiency Assessment, the project will improve freight performance metrics in 3 key areas: throughput, velocity, and travel time reliability. Throughput will increase by over 800 trucks on a daily basis as a result of congestion improvement and travel time reliability associated with the toll lane. As vehicles and transit utilize the toll lane, general purpose lanes occupied by freight will see a relief in congestion and a reduction in merging and weaving that cause collisions or further time delays. Velocity will also increase by as much as 9 miles per hour in the eastbound directions and 6 miles per hour in the westbound direction, due to reduced congestion from the toll lane addition. Travel time reliability will improve by as much as 37 minutes in the eastbound direction through the PM peak hour. This is calculated by the 2049 build-out year. The project constructs about a half mile, 0.4 mile long Class 1 facility at the Charles Road / Road 32A interchange to provide a safer active transportation connection between County Road 32A and the Causeway Bikeway. The project also rehabilitates the bike path surface to enhance safety at both ends of the Causeway bike path connections. These improvements make it more comfortable for people to walk or bike on this corridor and improve the usability of the existing causeway bike path. It's really about providing those connections. Well, as Adam mentioned, we do have that wonderful bike path on the existing main section of the freeway. It's connecting to the local road system that really helps to improve that bike path. We're also adding ITS infrastructure. The project will manage our highway capacity by installing changeable message signs, ramp meters, and fiber optic cabling. These investments inform drivers of crashes so they can alter their travel plans, reduce bottlenecks by metering access to the facility during peak hours, and extend necessary telecommunications infrastructure in this corridor. As part of its vehicle miles traveled or VMT mitigation plans for the full project, we will be investing in rail and transit along this corridor. This includes funding to add 3 round trips on the Capital Corridor between Sacramento and the Bay Area. The project will also fund $17.3 million in transit service increases, including on the popular Causeway Connection bus service. To help residents access these improvements in transit service, the project will also invest more than $20 million in proven incentive programs and transit pass discounts. Equity at every stage. The YOLO 80 project is committed to incorporating equity at every stage. As Autumn discussed, we see the existing configuration of the YOLO 80 as fundamentally inequitable. And the key purpose of adding a toll lane on this segment of freeway is to reduce burdens on adjacent communities. CARTA will be initiating an equity advisory committee to inform a regional tolling equity study. This committee will ensure the communities most impacted by toll facilities have direct influence on the development of toll policy and a regional equity program. CARTA will also explore equitable outcomes by creating an equity program that makes the toll lane accessible to underserved residents and reinvests toll revenue on advanced community needs. Project schedule. It's been on the works for a while. While today's public hearing on the toll application is an important milestone, the project has come a long way and still has ways to go. The toll facility application has a more detailed schedule, but this gives you a sense, just a high level sense of where we stand, of what we've achieved and how we got to this point and where we still have to go to get to construction and completion. The project kicked off in 2018 and the environmental analysis and design has been ongoing for almost 6 years. In 2021, the project received an $86 million federal infra award, which has driven the delivery schedule for the project ever since. As the project approached construction, CARTA was created to manage tolling policy and operations for the greater Sacramento region. The project is scheduled to start construction later this year, and the toll lanes are expected to start operating in 2028. Toll price setting, discounts, operating hours, and an expenditure plan for the excess revenues will be developed during the early part of construction, again, led by CARTA, so there will still be many more opportunities to shape the operations of this facility. And with this, I will turn it over to my partner, James Corliss.
Commissioners, it's a pleasure to have you here in West Sacramento and the greater Sacramento region. As my partners before me, Autumn Bernstein and Sergio Aceves, we're describing that we see this project as in part of a much broader regional context and much part of a broader regional plan. So I want to give you a little bit of a sense of that, as well as talk about the toll authority. We've made reference now, of course, you have the application from CARTA, the Capital Area Regional Toll Authority. And this really did take quite some work, but we wanted to be very intentional and very purposeful. We knew we had to have an agency that was the responsible entity, the toll authority, but we want to do it to create a true partnership. And that's why it is not one single agency, but this really is a partnership that honestly is modular over time. And I'm going to explain to you a little bit about how. At full build out of our managed lane network in the 6-county Sacramento SACOG region, we know that this has to span multiple counties, and I'll show you a map in a second. We're starting with this project, of course, but again, rather than have a single entity, it was important for us to have this be a true partnership, a partnership between Caltrans and Caltrans District 3, between with the YOLO Transportation District and with the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. And so right now, in its current formation, NCARTA has been formed. We've signed off on the Joint Powers Authority Agreement, and the CARTA board had its first meeting on February the 15th. And tonight we have Supervisor Oscar Villegas, who serves as the chair of the CARTA board, also a SACOG board member. SACOG has 2 appointments to this authority. YOLO Transportation District has 2 appointments, and Caltrans District 3 has 1. These are voting seats, so there's 5 voting seats. Acting Director Aceves is 1. But it's modular over time, as I mentioned. We wanted to build something that wouldn't end up in the future with multiple different toll authorities with different toll policies. So we've developed this Joint Powers Authority Agreement so that when Sacramento County has a toll project, that Sacramento County can join. And in fact, currently, now the way we've structured it is they have non-voting seats. If a project matures in Sacramento County, those non-voting seats flip to voting seats. El Dorado County Transportation Commission, the same way for the Highway 50 corridor, and the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency for the remainder of the I-80 corridor, which is such an important regional facility. So we built this as a partnership. We built this with a partnership between Caltrans, the regional agency, but also having a lot of local elected officials and local voices on the board. I mentioned that we see this not as just a single project, although this is the first project out of the gate, and a really important one at that, but eventually as part of a regional managed lane network, spanning multiple counties, spanning a lot of our really important corridors, I-80, I-5, Highway 99, and US 50. So I just want to go back to this map for a second. When this network is built, and this is part of our board-adopted regional metropolitan transportation plan and sustainable community strategy. So for an SES, this means this network is part of our ability to achieve our greenhouse gas reduction target and meet our climate goals as a region over time. That's the entire network when we can achieve that. It is a really important part for many reasons, managing traffic demand, but also, as you heard from Autumn, this is also our high capacity network for our long range bus network. It fits in and dovetails with our other strategies that are regional, that are 6-county in nature. And you heard Acting Director Aceves talk about the multimodal nature of this corridor. We are blessed to have frequent transit service already over the corridor on I-80, but also parallel Capital Corridor rail service, intercity rail service, which is some of those popular rail service in the United States and a huge connector between our region, the Bay Area. But you heard the active transportation components too. This project is going to upgrade part of the key bicycle pedestrian facility across the causeway and make our regional trail network in our region more of a reality. We have a plan to connect our region with 1,000 miles of paved bike trails to provide those multimodal options. The causeway and the YOLO bypass is as much a constraint on that as it is for highway traffic as well. But also our regional transit network. We know, again, we're blessed with heavy rail and intercity rail, the Capital Corridor. Soon we will get, we have the San Joaquin rail service up the San Joaquin Valley, but also we're getting ACE rail up here from South Bay and the Tri-Valley and Stockton. We hope we'll be here in 2026. But also our future lies in a network of high capacity, high frequency, reliable, rapid buses running on both dedicated corridors and bus rapid transit, but also across our managed lane network. And that is part of our board adopted regional transit network. This project this approach really fits into those regional visions. So finally, again, we've mentioned CARTA a number of times, but we did have our inaugural board meeting to kick off in February. We will be having essentially bi-monthly board meetings, typically happening at the SACOG board room, but those are also hybrid meetings. And then again, Acting Director Aceves mentioned this, really important to us, and our board has made a commitment with our partners around equity and really making sure that low-income travelers can get discounts, and that we're looking again about this, not just as the single project, but across the region. So we have one equity policy, we have one toll authority, and we're really tackling this at a regional level. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over.
Thank you to all the presenters. We're now going to open up the hearing for public comment. And we have Douglas. What's your title?
The guy with the stuff.
Yeah, guy with all the information. Douglas will now provide instructions on how to provide public comment, both in person and virtual.
Thank you, Commissioner. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. For those attending in person, please submit a speaker slip, and those are available at the back of the room. Please give them to me. Most of you have already. If you have not, feel free to bring that to me when you have a moment, and we'll pass them along to the folks up front to make sure you get called up. For those attending via the Zoom, you should see the webinar control panel likely located at the bottom of your screen. There you'll find the raise hand and the Q&A tab. We encourage you to use the raise hand feature to make your comments. Staff will call upon you when it's your turn to make a comment. Alternately, you may use the Q&A tab to submit your comment in writing. Staff will read the comment on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link to access the webinar. And I know there's at least one of you signed in twice. It should not be shared, as it can create confusion for staff when you're trying to make your comments. Please do your best to be concise. Please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating service adequate time for accurate translation. And we ask that you make your point in 3 minutes or less. Commissioner?
Thank you, Douglas. You are the clerk of the commission, am I correct?
Today I am.
Okay, okay. I'll make sure we got that. So now we will start public comment. What I'll do is read off 3 names. If you could line up over there by Doug and get ready, that'd be great. We're going to start with Keith Dunn, Self-Help Counties. Next, we will have Sam Rice. And after Sam will be Sophia Rapikova.
Thank you, Commissioner Keith Dunn here on behalf of Self-Help Counties Coalition. The original sponsors of AB 194 and the advocate that got to work with us. So we're really pleased to start seeing regions take that application and put it in practice throughout the region. I too am a native of this area, went to UC Davis myself, so I spent a lot of time on the Causeway. Go Aggies, that's right, that's right. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm a cheerleader at heart.
Well, I was the captain of the football team. So besides the greatness of the Aggie football program that everyone here can agree with, I would like to say this is the type of program that we like to see make these applications. It's clear that the throughput that it's going to help with our truck traffic is critically needed. The growth of this region continues. Also, the multimodal approach with the bike and ped improvements is critical. I spent time today in committee talking about the multimodal approach to fixing our infrastructure program and supporting 2 pieces of legislation, one for bike and peds and one for trail improvements, because we do need to take an all of the above approach and making sure that we're not only looking at enhancements to the highway system, but all of it. And again, the Self-Help County supports a multimodal approach, which includes highways, bikes, peds, everything. So very pleased to see this application come forward for your future consideration, and would like to just continue to thank you for your support to a broad-based fix for our infrastructure in California. Thank you.
you, Keith. Next, Sam.
All right, hello, commissioners. Let me raise this up a little bit. My name is Sam Rice. I am the president of the Environmental Democrats of Sacramento County. I'm also a member of ECOS, the Environmental Council of Sacramento. And I want to say first and foremost that we support the idea of tolling and managed lanes in the region, the mission of CARTA, the regional mission of CARTA, and the regional mission of those managed lanes that Mr. Corliss laid out is an exceptional mission and a way to raise funds and to mitigate some of the damage done by vehicle miles traveled. But I want to raise a few concerns about this project specifically. And those concerns are around the idea that it's very clear that it will increase vehicle miles traveled. That is one of the benefits of the project from the people and organizations who put the project before you. They plan to have additional throughput capacity, additional personal vehicle capacity. And to couple that, they have said that they will provide additional funding for transit service. Now, the lanes themselves will not be transit only. They will be transit lanes shared with personal vehicles who are willing to pay for it. And as was clearly laid out to you, the individuals using these lanes have higher median incomes, mostly from the Bay Area and outlying communities, and are happy to pay toll the fees. So those buses will not necessarily increase in their frequency nor in their efficiency moving along this road. We have suggested in comments that there be at least 2 managed lanes on this stretch of road, one being a transit-only lane, perhaps to dramatically increase the viability of transit service between the two. And again, while we are incredibly engaged and happy about the idea of additional funding towards bike and ped infrastructure, as was clear from the presentation you just saw, we're talking about 60 trips of individuals. So that's not going to put a dent in the massive increase to vehicle miles traveled, coupled with the induced demand of making the transit trip by personal vehicle even easier. So again, while we support the idea of tolling, we believe it is a great way to raise funds. The proof will be in the mitigation itself. The project lays out that this tolling is supposed to provide funding for mitigation. But unless we are concrete about how much of the funding, what portion of the funding, while we know that's a function of CARTA to decide, in essence, how the funding will be laid out, unless we are clear about how much of that funding will actually be put towards public transit rather than the infrastructure and maintenance of the managed lanes themselves, we can't be fully supportive of the project at this time. So we really ask that we scrutinize this application. Thank you very much.
Sophia, nice to see you.
Yeah, great seeing you. Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. Sophia Abrico, the Coalition for Clean Air. So the YO80 Managed Lanes project is being recommended because it will ostensibly improve travel times, reduce emissions, and improve safety. However, we're concerned these claims are based on faulty modeling. The model Caltrans is using erroneously determines that this project would reduce VMT by not accounting for the fact that drivers will naturally shift their departure times to avoid congested peak periods. This conclusion is in conflict with already published literature that states that whenever we increase road capacity by 1%, it will lead to a 1% increase in the number of cars on the road. Additionally, there was a letter submitted by CARB that confirms that this project will substantially increase vehicle miles traveled and GHGs and warns that the YO-ID project is inconsistent with state plans. By increasing traffic, this project will actually lead to higher emissions, worse congestion, and a higher rate of car crashes, which is the exact opposite of everything it claims to do. The YO-80 project also does not fully mitigate its impacts. You may have heard today about some of the proposed transit and bikeway improvements. However, this project is only offering to mitigate less than half of its total induced VMT. This is contrary to Caltrans's own guidelines that state a project should fully mitigate all of the projected induced travel. Project proponents simply state that VMT mitigation is limited due to budget concerns, but offer no explanation of why the mitigation budget could not be increased, especially for a project of this size. If this project were to proceed, we do ask that CTC encourage Caltrans to fully mitigate its VMT impacts. And finally, we are concerned that the project may have been piecemealed. This concern was brought up by a former Caltrans employee who pointed out that the managed lanes project and the pavement rehabilitation project for the Yola I-80 should have been considered as one project. This is a serious allegation, since CEQA prohibits a project from being split into smaller pieces in order to obscure its possible environmental impact. As such, the project is currently undergoing an active audit to verify this claim. Given these inconsistencies, we ask the commission not to approve this project and to postpone the vote until the results of the audit are announced. Thank you.
And before I call the next three names, I think we have Commissioner Norton that either has a comment or a question.
Yes, sorry, I'm trying to unmute. I do have a comment, and that was, I had a question about the number of passengers that are anticipated to be bus riders due to the increased number of buses on the toll lanes. In Los Angeles, the bus ridership on the toll lanes is outpacing a lot of other bus routes because it moves so fast. And I just wanted to find out, because I did not hear the number of bus riders intended.
Thank you, Commissioner Norton.
Hi, Commissioner Norton, Autumn Bernstein with the Yolo Transportation District. We do not have an estimate currently of the number of trips. Caltrans, who are working on the AAR, have those numbers at their fingertips. If not, we will be sure to provide them.
Oh, you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now back to speakers in the room. Don Saylor, Alan Hirsch, and Bill Higgins.
Hello, Commissioners. Commissioner Eager, it's good to see you again. And thank you all for coming to West Sacramento and taking your business seriously. I was elected by my neighbors in Davis and Yolo County to serve for 27 years in roles with the school board, the city council, and the county board of supervisors. And in those roles, I was able to participate, represent my community as a member of the SACOG Board of Directors and on the Yolo County Transportation District, and chair both of those organizations during some of the formative stages of the project that you have before you. This tolling authority is a necessary step for implementation of one of the most critical projects in our region. During the time I was a member of the SACOG Board, we created a mega region working group. And that working group included representatives of the 9 Bay Area counties, the 6 capital area counties, and San Joaquin County. Now, those 16 counties together identified a dozen high priority projects that had regional significance. There is no project more significant for the movement of people and goods in our 16 county region than the one that's before you, that this capital area regional tolling authority would assist in implementation. This project is not an either or. This is not either transit or road capacity. One of the beauties of it is it takes all of the above for us to make this corridor work. There are references in your presentations about the improvements coming in the Capital Corridor. You heard that here in Yolo County, we have a single agency that's responsible for comprehensive transportation planning as well as operating the transit system. We have partnerships here. We have partnerships demonstrated by Caltrans, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, Yolo County Transportation District, and our colleagues throughout this region. It's not an either or solution. One of the beauties of this project is that it doesn't have environmental impacts on the fragile ecosystem that the causeway traverses. That bypass is a home to species. It's a natural habitat. When you visit it, you'll see what I'm talking about. We didn't design a project that enlarges the transportation infrastructure. We're making better use, more efficient use of the existing infrastructure by establishing a managed lane dynamic pricing that will allow us to generate revenue and to manage this facility in a way that will benefit all of its users. Understand, and I know you do, that this facility serves freight hauling. It is the major freeway between San Francisco and it's one of the interstate system major corridors all the way across the country. This is important. I ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Saylor, and thank you for all your years of service to the region. Appreciate you. Alan Hirsch?
Alan Hirsch, YOLO Mobility, also editor of I-80 News. I've been following this project intensely, going to all the YOLO Transportation District meetings for 6 or 7 years. Going to city council meetings for 12, 15 years consistently. I have the handout here. I don't know if the commissioners remotely will have a copy of this thing, and the public doesn't have a copy of this. I requested that this be distributed immediately to them. I was at San Jose for the CTC meeting in March, and I was very impressed with Carl Gardino's comment about how to disagree better. That's very impressive. And one of the key things, one of the reasons that we have a public hearing is basically to hear the people who aren't, when people advance a project, they have confirmation bias, and the people outside can see things they can't. So it's really important that we don't muffle those voices and we disagree appropriately. And I'm suggesting that basically the rules of this game are not locked. There are 5 members of the public here, because this public hearing was not publicized in Davis. There was no press release given to any newspaper. With nothing given to any of the blogs. I wrote some stuff. The flyer does not solicit written for public comment, doesn't give a letter to read public comment, doesn't basically tell you what to get the documents about this project. How do we disagree better when we don't engage the public? And why is this in West Sacramento? The people mostly affected by the high tolls are people in Davis. And in Davis, if you had it outside of rush hour in Davis, you get 20 or 30 people there instead of 3 or 4 here in West Sacramento. So I think this venue, there's something's wrong here with this whole process here. But let me go on here. I think we should have another public hearing. And I was told this was about tolling, because we have a presentation about secret data presented. In fact, this is the first presentation I've seen of the entire committee, entire project in Yolo County. This has not been very visible. There's no cat and mouse game about information here. In terms of the tolling policy, the 3 freight policy favors Tahoe travelers, because there are other groups going, and they're already going. And basically, there's no evidence that when you offer 3 freight, there's a table here in the Caltrans study that basically says the difference in increasing carpooling is trivial, 1 or 2 or 3%. This is Caltrans I-80 CMP study. So this is valid here relative to this situation. When you have 3 freight, there are fewer capacities that is auctioned off in the managed lanes or drives up tolls for everybody else, which creates equity problems. I think there's an issue there. There's so few toll. They chose the 3 freight, which cuts toll revenue by 60%. I have a table there that shows that from the December 11th. And that's less money for equity, less money for mitigation. We have to mitigate 57 million miles a year in the EIR. And $1 a mile, passenger mile, which is going to cost something about that's $50 million a year. You'll see the toll revenue only generates 9.6 million a year in that net. It would generate 23 if you didn't have the 3 free. So we're way short on just the mitigation. Where's the equity money? There's lots of other issues I'll send that. Thank you.
Good evening, Bill Higgins with the California Association of Councils of Governments. Pleased to be with you here in West Sacramento tonight. And I came here representing, like Mr. Dunn, most of the self-help counties, but also all 18 metropolitan planning organizations that are responsible for developing a regional transportation plan with a sustainable community strategy. And if you look at SB 375, one of the things that has made it a unique bill is it embraced the regional state partnership that we have, where there are state goals and there are regional goals and needs, and we work it out. And one of the things that, when it comes to climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, of course, we get a target from the state, but then each region figures out how to achieve that target, and there's full flexibility in how to achieve it. When we take a look at a project like this, it has to still blend in with the larger greenhouse and climate goals that SACOG has to produce for the region. But we also have to take a look at the future of our transportation planning process. And how are we going to move 10 or 15 years from now? And how are we going to move when we don't have a gas tax revenue anymore that's funding the potholes and the maintenance of our system? And we have to look at alternative planning and alternative pricing structures. And the public isn't really ready to shift to that automatically. So we need things like toll lanes and different pilot programs around the state to prepare for that. Because when we're all driving electric vehicles, which we will be, we still need to drive on smooth roads and have safe bridges and a multimodal system to boot. And so there's no perfect project in the state today, right? But this project, as the speakers have said before me, it's blending. It's got plans for both, and it's something that can build and the region can grow with. And it's come forward through a state regional partnership. And I think that is the spirit that SB 194 embraced, that it is this partnership that we have where regions bring resources to the table, the state brings resources to the table, and we figure out how to serve a system that can get people to Tahoe, but also get people back and forth to see an Aggies football game. Thank you.
Next we'll have, I think it's Jesse Lauren, Oscar Villegas, Ralph Proper. Thank you.
Let's bring this down a little bit. Thank you so much for
And I
being
know it's
here.
Winters.
Yay, Winters,
Yes.
yeah. Actually, I serve on SACOG, Transportation Committee, Race, Equity, and Inclusion. I also serve on the Transportation for Yolo County, but I'm mainly speaking as a council member from Winters. Winters is 50% Hispanic. It's very agricultural. People work locally in agriculture. They also drive the I-80 corridor. I support this exciting project. Many of our residents use I-80 to work, to get to work, to get home to their families. They spend an inordinate amount of time stuck in traffic. For us, we're driving to jobs in Sacramento, in Rockland. We're driving to cancer treatments at UC Davis Medical Center. We're working in government and crossing the causeway daily. The real question to me is, are the folks who are stuck in traffic 2 hours each way worthy of getting home to their families? Right now, freight speeds at the bottleneck regularly slow to 15 miles per hour. Surely it means crops, goods and services are also slow to a crawl. But it means people like my husband and many of my constituents are stuck in that bottleneck. And we all have better things to do than sit in traffic. This project will increase freight throughput by more than 800 trucks per day, and that is essential to our economy. Those trucks and many cars will be converting to electric, to hydrogen. Many are CNG now, or electric already. We're getting cleaner. We're becoming greener. Speaking for myself on this, we talk a lot about VMT, but I want to remind you that we live in the farming and agricultural heart of California that creates food for the world. And that food has to move from origin to table. And that means a geographic lift of VMT, no matter what. So simply put, a tomato in the fields of Winters has to get to the canning center, or asparagus and esparto has to get to a distribution hub, then to the store, and then to people. It benefits everyone to have that product move faster, and it really helps the emotional and mental health of families to have more time together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Oscar Villegas, Yolo County.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome to Yolo County. Actually, welcome to West Sacramento and welcome to District 1, my district. So, Yolo County Supervisor, SACOG District Director, but also Chair of the newly referenced CART Board. So wearing several hats. Most of it's already been said. I'm looking forward to going to Southern California during the hearing next month. But I will simply say and emphasize what James said earlier, and that is the SACOG Board really took on a huge lift to sort of lead the effort to put together this JPA with all the partners that you've already heard multiple times are now party to this effort. We hope that you will find our application favorably. We hope that you'll land there. We're sure you will. I'm looking forward to testifying next month at the meeting, and hope you enjoy your stay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Supervisor. Ralph Proper, and then Christopher Abelton.
Hello, I'm Ralph Cropper. I'm on the board of Greek California Secondary Region and Ecos Advertising Earth Day coming up here this month. I hope you're on the earth when you come there. I think the CARTA is a great first step for what we need, but we need more. I should mention that I'm retired from the Air Resources Board, Climate Science Research section. I know how bad climate is getting and will be getting. So that's the reason why the legislature approved SB 375 and 743 to deal with climate change. We know about induced travel, adding lanes. Basically, I think you should consider having all the lanes, the toll lanes, and perhaps that might raise sufficient funds to provide for public transit, maybe transit-oriented development that would be needed to mitigate for the increased greenhouse gas emissions from the increased vehicle miles traveled that this project will cause. So I guess that's the main thing that I wanted to say. So thank you.
Sir. Christopher?
You should have given up. Hi, thank you so much, Commissioners. I'm Christopher Cabaldon. Yes. And I really appreciate you being here. I'm the former mayor of West Sacramento. I was the mayor here for 20 years. I chaired the Transportation District, been on the District Board as well as the Capital Corridor Board, and chaired SACOG when we developed the blueprint that inspired and became the framework for SB 375. This is a community that is a textbook example of what highways have done in the country. It has divided our city, not just it alone, but the rail line did the same thing, and then the construction of the Port Deepwater Channel. We've been bisected so many times in neighborhoods left behind. And dealing with pollution and disinvestment. So we've seen all of those impacts in our community. This project is part of the answer to fix some of those challenges and to meet the needs of the communities in our city, the Cal Envirus Green zip codes that have experienced so much that deserve to have access to mobility as well. Let me say first, though, about induced demand. My colleagues have done a great job of talking about some of the human issues here. Induced demand is real. It's an important issue, and it undergirds so much of our state and local policies. But I think it's also important to remember that virtually no induced demand models account for the effects of the recent state housing policies. We are no longer in a situation where the availability of free-flowing lanes on the freeway cause people to locate in new housing further out. Instead, we're all required to build all of the housing. You'll see this in the environmental documents for this project, for example, where it says, what if we built 4,500 more units in the Bridge District right nearby here in the urban part of West Sacramento, instead of in the suburban part of the city? Could we reduce vehicle miles traveled? Well, maybe, but the state says you're going to do both. If there is a developable parcel of land to build housing, you will build there. And so it isn't lanes that are inducing travel in current California economics. It is state policy and local policy in the drastic need for housing. So you think about that in this context. The other thing that is important here is that we're not an urban place with lots of alternatives for walking and biking. This corridor bisects the causeway and the river. And so all of the communities of our city and elsewhere in Yolo County, that you cannot get to where you need to go other than on this facility. And so the CARB letter that said, well, wouldn't it be better if all the lanes were congestion priced? No, it would not. The poorest neighborhoods in our city, they depend on the ability to move across to employment. And so delay on this project means death. The next best alternative can't be funded. The grants will not be usable for that purpose. Yolo County uniquely in this region has stepped up to say congestion pricing is the future, managed lanes are the future, we're ready to do it. You can overdo that and destroy the political support and the sustainability of a project by taking it to its extreme, which is why the collaborative compromise that's been developed here in the region deserves your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any other people wishing to speak that are in the room? Any other cards, Douglas? Okay, then we will go to online.
Great, we do have 3 hand raised online. Kiana Valentine first. Kiana, you should be unmuted and able to speak now.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Kiana Valentine on behalf of Transportation California, representing the workforce and industry that builds, maintains, designs the multimodal transportation system in the state of California. Here in strong support of the YOLO 80 toll facility application and project at large. I think the presentations have covered sufficiently the need for this project, but I would like to emphasize a couple of points that were made earlier in the presentations. That this stretch of YOLO or 80 in YOLO County is a major bottleneck, preventing safe and efficient movement of people and goods, experiencing congestion 7 days a week. I know as someone who traverses the causeway quite often, it is anyone's guess on any given day at any given time how quickly I can get from point A to point B. And there are simply no alternative routes to provide relief to folks like myself and the hundreds of thousands of other people trying to move between Sacramento and the Bay Area. The other point I want to emphasize is that if we do nothing, congestion is going to get significantly worse. I think the statistic is 3 to 4 times worse than it is today by 2049. And not only is this bad for the economy and job creation and the ability for the workforce I help represent to get to job sites every day, it's bad for communities, it's bad for air pollution, it's bad for safety. So from our perspective, the industry finds that this project does strike the right balance between the economy, economic needs, sustainability, making sure we are vetting projects through SB 375 and VMT through a VMT lens. And as has been pointed out, this project does include significant VMT reducing mitigations that even a few years ago would not have been required, but for SB 743 implementation. And equity, really investing in transit, bicycle, pedestrian, and other modes of congestion to give all all folks trying to traverse this part of the state options to do that. And so with that, Madam Chair, again, Transportation California and the transportation construction industry is in support of this project today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have York Dahl. Robert, you should be able to unmute now and give your public comment.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Norbert Dahl, the hosts of the Californians Project. For better or worse, Interstate 80 is one of the 7 major gateways from inland Northern California, and indeed much of the nation, to the California coast. Maximized public access to the coast for all the people is a constitutional right of all Californians. All public agencies, including the Transportation Commission, are required to act accordingly. The Federal Coastal Zone Management Act requires it. 80, including through YOLO County, was proposed, built, and exists as a California freeway, not the foundation for a toll road. First, building new freeway lanes of any sort over wetlands is not the answer to traffic congestion or for enhancing mobility. Second, the proposal before you would mete out environmental justice by toll gate. That is an unconstitutional act when it comes to coastal access at the very same time that you are also cumulatively considering road use charges and other toll roads, such as on Highway 37 between Vallejo and Southern Sonoma, Northern Marin. Absent a comprehensive and environmentally just transportation plan for the 80 corridor that avoids these cumulative adverse effects on regional and national coastal access from the start. The proposal before you falls on California constitutional as well as state and national coastal program grounds. This is not the project for the future. This is a project from the past. It should be substantially redesigned and reworked. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Last hand raised, we have Carl Panillo. Carl, you should be unmuted and able to make your public comment.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for hearing me today. My name is Carl Pinio. I'm the business manager of Ironworks Local 118 here in Sacramento, and representing 1,200 members. We strongly support this project. A lot of our members are commuters to the Bay Area when needed, when work slows down in the Sacramento region, so they have to have options. But I-80 is basically the only option that they have to go to and from. And by investing in this corridor, it will not only improve our economy with better transportation options, but will also reduce commute times, which would lead to the members spending more quality time with their families. This will also lead to less emissions, which moves California on reaching our climate goals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other online?
There's no other online or Q&A.
Okay, great, thank you. And I understand we have some additional written comments that were sent to us that we'll be able to share with.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I was going to address that. We've received a few emails and some written comments. Mr. Hirsch's handout today. We'll make sure those get out to all the commissioners in the next day or two.
Thank you. We have any other comments in the room? This is a speak now for rules of peace. No, you get lots of chances. No? Any commissioners wishing to make comments or have questions? Our online commissioners.
Seeing none from the online commissioners.
Okay, well, with that, I do want to say one quick little thing. As I was listening to everyone talk, I had this little guilt of, oh man, I lived all the way in Natomas and drove to Davis. Just so everyone knows, it's on the record, my husband worked in Roseville. So we tried to pick halfway so that we could each go the other way. So I wasn't adding on to the DMT, I just wanted to put that. If there are no other